This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Church Street United Methodist Church proudly presents Rejoice.
Good morning and welcome to Rejoice, the weekly devotional program brought to you by Church Street United Methodist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. My name is Andy Ferguson and I'm pleased to be one of the pastors at Church Street Church. In November 2009, Tariq Salahi and his then wife gained national attention by crashing a White House state dinner in honor of India's Prime Minister. They entered the state dinner despite lacking an invitation. Mrs. Salahi is a member of Bravo's The Real Housewives of Washington, D.C., and the show filmed their preparations for the dinner and followed the couple to the White House. The Salahis passed through 2 security checkpoints, one of which checked them for a photo ID. A reporter of the Washington Post surmised that the Salahis were allowed to enter because they looked the part, and in her words, stepped through a cultural blind spot. The Washington Post also quoted an anonymous official as having said the Salahis were allowed inside in violation of agency policies by an officer outside the front gate who apparently was persuaded by the couple's manners as well as the pressure of keeping the lines moving on a rainy evening. The White House security detail knew of their blunder in allowing the Salahis into the White House event was when the couple posted photographs from the dinner on their Facebook page. The White House on November 27th released its own photos of the couple posing with President Obama, Vice President Joe Biden, and Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel. What do we do with party crashers? Apparently the Salahis got whatever they hoped to get, publicity, bragging rights, and maybe some TV time. Luckily for the nation, it was just a prank for grown-ups. They intended no harm to anyone at the White House. For the White House, it was an embarrassment and a time for soul-searching. Is the White House the secure national home for the first family this nation requires? Is a state visit by the Prime Minister of India a suitable occasion for parlor pranks? Those party crashers provided the occasion for the White House to learn a painful lesson. Well, what would we do with party crashers at an event that we've planned? Most of us would not even realize that crashers had gotten inside. Most likely they would enter, eat our food, what we'd prepare for our guests, mingle with the crowd, and then slip away without causing a scene. Luckily, most party crashers do not intend to wreck the parties they join. Like the Salahis, they want the score, the bragging rights, and maybe the rush of pulling it off. You know, party crashers are as old as the Bible. In the 7th chapter of the Gospel according to Luke, we find Jesus at a dinner party where a party crasher slips inside. While she was low-key, she was not invisible and even became the focus of attention for a time. We will read her story from the scripture in a moment. But first, let's listen as our parish youth choir sings, "I Want Jesus to Walk With Me." Now take your Bible. We're going to read beginning with Luke chapter 7, verse 36. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to eat with him, and he went into the Pharisee's house and took his place at the table. And a woman of the city who was a sinner, having learned that he was eating in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster jar of ointment. She stood behind him at his feet, weeping, and began to bathe his feet with her tears and to dry them with her hair. And then she continued kissing his feet and anointing them with the ointment. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw it, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would have known who and what kind of woman this is who is touching him, that she is a sinner. Jesus spoke up and said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. Teacher, he replied, speak. A certain creditor had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii, the other 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debts for both. Now which of them will love him more? Simon answered, I suppose the one for whom he canceled the greater debt. And Jesus said to him, you have judged rightly. And then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has bathed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, have been forgiven. Hence she has shown great love. But the one to whom little is forgiven loves little. And then he said to her, your sins are forgiven. But those who were at the table with him began to say among themselves, who is this who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. God's word for God's people. Would you pray with me? Oh God, we receive your word. Let it teach us till we too are wise, till we too understand the very heart of God. We pray in the name of Christ. Amen. One of the Pharisees invited Jesus to eat with him at his home. So that Jesus went with this Pharisee and reclined, as was the custom of that day, at the table. What you have to remember is that no women would have been part of this meal. The male head of the household brings a male guest home for dinner, and it is immediately a men's-only affair. The women would, of course, be busy preparing the meal out of sight. But the woman of the house would not even serve the meal in her own home. A male servant, or perhaps the eldest son for the great occasion, would wait the table. This is the custom in Saudi Arabia to this day. The other fact about meals in a biblical village is that they were fairly public. The houses in the village are packed side by side and open directly onto the street. The modern idea of a front yard, which sets the house back from the noise and the nosiness of the street, would have been foreign to them. Thus, everyone in the village would know that the traveling Rabbi Jesus was eating dinner at Simon's house, and anyone who cared to walk by Simon's front door could have gotten a glimpse of the affair. In addition, anyone who was brazen enough could step inside and approach the guest at the table. It would only require maybe half a dozen steps from the street. But when this woman of the city stepped off the street to approach Jesus, no one even considered the possibility that she would step into their occasion. Social graces said she should not even try. She went to the dining room and, without saying a word, came up behind Jesus. Now remember, he reclines at the table on his left elbow, his feet away from the table. She took an alabaster jar of ointment and began to anoint his feet. This might have been enough, but as she continued her task, she began to weep, her tears falling on his feet. And then she loosed her long hair and began to wipe her tears away. Now think about this scene. We tend to read the Bible thinking to ourselves that whatever the action, it was somehow normal for that time, even if it is not normal for ours. This was not normal. She broke all the rules that Simon the host was trying to keep. First, no party crashers should be in that dining room. This is not a public setting like a restaurant. It is a home. we would be properly indignant too if someone intruded into a dinner in our home. Second, no woman should be at that meal. Not the woman of the house, not a daughter, not a servant, not an intruder, and certainly not a woman of the city, an immoral woman. We would expect the same in our homes too, right? No woman, ancient or modern, should touch a man this way unless she is married to him. No honorable man should let a strange woman touch him this way. But this is not an ordinary woman in that time. She is a sinner, remember? A woman of the city. A man of position might acknowledge that he knows who she is, but he must never admit to knowing her personally. Thus, Jesus must not let her touch him. His own reputation is at stake. Finally, this woman should not let down her hair in public this way. Letting down her hair was something a woman did in the privacy of her own home for her husband. You see, this act has sexual meaning. Letting her hair down in front of all these gawking men was an affront. Now, if something like this happens at Calhoun's on Sunday lunch today, I would love to hear about it, and I probably will. We all will. You know such a story is going to be told all over town. It's not normal stuff. Well, friends, if you're planning to address such a moment and reframe it to make it something other than what it appears to be, you'd better be Rabbi Jesus. Any ordinary man would have had his reputation wrecked by this unfolding scene. It was Jesus who turned it into a holy moment of love, forgiveness, and teaching. Thus, Luke wrote down the story so that we could still tell it today. Simon the Pharisee, the host of the meal, thinks to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who and what kind of woman is touching him, that she is a sinner. Now, Simon is only voicing what every other person in the room and everyone observing from the street or from behind the curtain is thinking. There are social rules and norms, and we all expect them to be kept. In reply, Jesus addressed Simon, his host. I have something to say to you. And with that, Jesus tells a riddle. A certain creditor had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii, the other 50. And when they could not pay, he canceled the debts for both of them. Now, which of them will love him more? And Simon answered, I suppose the one for whom he canceled the greater debt. Nice trap, Simon. You just walked into it. So Rabbi Jesus begins to apply the lesson of the riddle to his host, Simon the Pharisee. And then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has bathed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which were many, have been forgiven. Hence she has shown great love, but the one to whom little is forgiven loves little. Now, you and I might protest that the minor omissions of Simon the host are nothing compared to the life of sin and the social invasion of this woman. I expect the men sitting around that table were ready to jump to his defense. Simon, by choosing the life of a Pharisee, committed himself to keeping the great law of God. Whatever small omissions he had committed in the past hour were nothing compared to the affront this woman of the city lived out every day. But Jesus and Simon knew that in that time the law of hospitality was revered almost as much as the law of morality. Simon was the host. Hospitality was his part to play. Simon also realized that Jesus had just taken a minor skirmish and turned it into a reminder of the great character of God. The curious part of this exchange is that Simon the Pharisee did not question Jesus' basic assumption about God, that God stands willing and able to forgive the sinner with such effect that the sinner may stand in holiness before God again. You see, unlike our day, Jesus and apparently Simon the Pharisee believed that God's forgiveness has the power to reclaim lives from the cesspools of human depravity. that God's forgiveness has the power to restore relationships with neighbors and communities that have been broken, and that God's desire to restore the sinner through forgiveness stands higher than God's tally of the rule of right and wrong. This is a story about the power of God's forgiveness to restore a sinner back to God and back to her community. It is not merely about taking away her guilt and her past. It's about restoring her to friendship, to family, and community. Now, the worry I bring to this story is that our society has forgotten the power of forgiveness. We focus on guilt or innocence in a way that isolates us in that framework. The woman kissing Jesus' feet was a known sinner. That is all we care to know about her, her guilt or her innocence. But Jesus knew that God has the power to forgive, and with that forgiveness, God can restore sinners back to relationship with their families, their friends, and their communities. With forgiveness, God can tear aside the walls of social disapproval that isolate us from our most important relationships. We so focus on guilt and innocence that we have no expectation or ability in our society to restore the relationship that is broken. Such a narrow focus limits our possibilities. Samuel Wells said recently in the Christian Century, deciding guilt or innocence has no preventative power. It cannot stop people from doing terrible things to one another. It can only punish them for doing so. Second, he said, it seems that any system of law enforcement is only as effective as the force that lies behind it. Without the expectation that we are community together, all we can do is watch for lawbreakers with greater scrutiny and bigger weapons. On April 2nd, 2013, Fox News reported that city council members in Nelson, a city of about 1,300 residents located 50 miles north of Atlanta, voted unanimously to approve the Family Protection Ordinance. The measure requires every household to own a gun and ammunition to provide for the emergency management of the city and to provide for and protect the safety, security, and general welfare of the city and its inhabitants. I grieve over the loss of innocence in that ordinance. I recall a time in East Tennessee when the most robust locks in the neighborhood where I grew up were screen door latches. I recall that my brother and sister-in-law in Montana used to go to work each day leaving the doors of their home unlocked. According to my brother-in-law's logic, he left the doors unlocked because someone might need to come inside. I certainly understand that the world of 2013 is very different from rural Tennessee a generation past. Different times call for different measures and all that. But the point is that the relationship we have with our neighbors and our communities is shrinking. We expect less connection and relationship from the people who live on our street, and they expect less of us. Being unwilling to seek much relationship with our neighbors and our communities, we assume no other option but to buy guns. But God has something else for us. There is restoring holy forgiveness in God. Psalm 103 says, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. He does not deal with us according to our sins, nor repay us according to our iniquities. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his steadfast love toward those who fear him. Jesus was convinced that God's forgiveness is effective and powerful. He believed that those whom God forgives are restored to family and neighbors. The sinful woman is welcomed home again. The grumpy curmudgeon learns to laugh with delight. The child is free to seek the embrace of her family. Forgiveness opens its arms in welcome. Guilt or innocence will remain important judgments in our society. But we who have known the forgiveness of God know that there is more than those judgments. There is also restoration of relationships, homecoming, welcoming, and community in the presence of God. And we who follow Christ watch for the possibility God's way might stand open to us once again. Well, now as we reflect on this story and its lessons, let us listen as our Church Street organist Edie Johnson plays Jerusalem, My Happy Home. As we come to the close of our time this morning, I want to extend an invitation to you to join us in worship at Church Street. We worship each Sunday morning at 8:30 and 11 o'clock a.m. Both services are beautiful, located in that beautiful space. And I invite you to come and join us to experience the majesty of God. Also, Sunday school is at 9:40. Again, this is a time when you can get with a small group to share and explore our Christian faith. And finally, I'd like to invite you to our Wednesday worship. It is held at noon in the chapel. A time of communion, a time of refreshment in the middle of the week. I invite you to come during your lunch hour. You'll be in and out in about 30 minutes. A wonderful time for this break in the middle. Well, finally, I'm Andy Ferguson, pastor at Church Street United Methodist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. I thank you for letting me share this devotional time with you in your home. Now, as I go, my wish for you is that you might live each day like out of the corner of your eye, you've just caught sight of God and realize that God is headed your way.
Members and friends of Church Street United Methodist Church, your downtown church at the corner of Henley and Main, would like to thank you for joining Rejoice. Please send us your comments and suggestions, and be sure to tune in next Sunday at this same time for Rejoice.